Babka is one of those things that you can't really go wrong with. There's a billion recipes out there. They're all gonna taste good. And you're never gonna go wrong with babka, but I guarantee that this is the last babka recipe you will ever need. There's some weird ingredients in there that purists are not gonna agree with, but these secret ingredients are gonna make for the best babka and the best enriched brioche that you're ever gonna eat. So let me show you how to make this. We're gonna start off by adding the milk. I'm just using whole milk, and I'm also gonna measure everything in grams. It's just gonna make this a lot more consistent. You'll be able to make it the exact same way that I do at home. So basically I'm just gonna put that in the microwave and heat it up until it's warm to the touch, and I'm gonna pour that in the bowl. And then I'm just gonna sprinkle a little bit of brown sugar in there, and basically that's just gonna help feed the yeast and activate it. And now I'm gonna add in the yeast. And just stir that up really quick. And then we're just gonna let that sit there for a few minutes until it gets nice and frothy. We're just basically checking to see if our yeast is alive. And then I'm gonna add a whole egg, and I'm gonna add an egg yolk. And I'm just gonna stir that up really quick, just to get it nice and incorporated before we add our other ingredients. And now I'm just gonna add a little bit of artificial vanilla. So this is fake vanilla. It's one of the ingredients that I absolutely love in this recipe. It makes it taste like childhood. And then I'm also gonna be using brown sugar. It makes it nice and rich. The molassesy background flavor works super well in this recipe, and I love it. And also we're just gonna add a little bit of salt to kind of balance everything out. And then this is another secret ingredient, and this is milk powder. So milk powder is basically just gonna add to the chewiness, the richness, and give this bread a lot more body. And it tastes amazing. And you can really use it in any recipe that requires bread, and it's gonna make any recipe amazing. I like to use it in pizza a lot, and I get awesome results with it. Next, we're just gonna add a little bit of, this is all-purpose flour. It's gonna give a nice soft bite to everything. And then this next ingredient is cake flour or pastry flour. This is gonna make it nice and soft. It's gonna give it kind of like a desserty taste. And I love using this in really any dessert recipe that calls for flour, because it gives everything a nice flavor. I'm just gonna go ahead and stir that up until it's nice and incorporated. You don't have to really do this too much. You basically just want to see all of the flour kind of disappear into the mix. Kind of like that. It's gonna be nice and soft. Just have it mostly incorporated before we add it to our mixer. And you can definitely 1,000,000,000% do all of this by hand. The mixer is just gonna make it a lot easier. If you're doing it by hand, you're just gonna add the butter at the beginning. It's still gonna taste amazing. It's not the proper way to make a brioche dough, but if you just add the butter at the beginning and mix everything by hand, it's gonna pretty much turn out the same, and it's gonna taste delicious. So I'm just putting on the dough hook attachment, and right here we're going to basically just mix this until it comes together into a nice ball. This part doesn't take too long. We're not really trying to develop all the gluten right now. We're just trying to kind of get it to come together. Once you see it coming together, it's going to get nice and pulling together. You're going to see the gluten developing. Basically, we're just going to kind of keep all this in the bowl right now, cover it with some plaster wrap, or just let it sit there for a few minutes to kind of rest a little bit before we add our butter. And I actually completely forgot to film the part where I add the butter, but basically what we're gonna do is after the few minutes of rest, we're gonna turn this on kind of a medium-low speed, and then we're gonna add the butter slowly. Once all the butter is incorporated in different intervals, then we can start mixing it until the dough fully comes together, until we're completely happy with the gluten development. So periodically I just scrape down the sides of the bowl, kind of just get the dough in a different position so it can be worked from every different angle. You just want to make sure that it is completely mixed, and if you have a mixer, you might as well use it, right? So we're just going to kind of do the window pane test occasionally. As you can see right there, it wasn't ready, but when it's ready, you can do a quick window pane test. You should be able to see through it, and then that's how you know it's ready to go. So once it's ready to go, we're just going to kind of scrape it down in the bowl, get everything nice and incorporated so we can do the rise. We're just going to cover that with cling film. I like to cover it with cling film. It's kind of cold in my apartment right now, so I just put it in the oven with the light turned on. That light is going to keep it nice and warm in there, and it's going to help our dough rise in about 1 to 2 hours. Now we don't really have to let this double in size. It's going to get noticeably bigger. Mine didn't necessarily double, and you don't really have to let it double. You can also let that part go overnight in the refrigerator, and you can do this the next day, and that's what most brioche dough recipes call for, or most babka recipes. That's an easy way to do it. It just makes rolling it out easier. I put a lot of flour. I was pretty liberal with that on my counter. You don't have to put that much, but it makes it, it gives you a little bit of confidence so you know it's not going to stick. But you really shouldn't have that problem. As long as the dough's incorporated correctly and it's got enough gluten development, it's not really going to stick. So we're just going to roll that out into kind of like a rectangle. Don't be too hands-on with it. We don't want to stress out the gluten too much. So if it starts fighting you, kind of just go with it and let it rest for a little while. But once you get it into the shape that you're happy with, we're going to spread some Nutella on there. So the Nutella is... I like to use that instead of making a chocolate mixture for the inside. I think the Nutella adds like a nice nuttiness. The hazelnut chocolate is amazing in here, and I absolutely love it. So we're just gonna spread that on there. I wouldn't recommend using a knife. I use a knife, and it took me way longer than it should have. But yeah, don't use a knife. Use more like a rubber spatula or something. Then I'm just gonna sprinkle some bittersweet chocolate chips on there. These are guitar chocolate chips. And I just love the contrast that this gives the hazelnut spread, and it tastes amazing when it's baked because the chocolate kind of stays kind of soft in there and everything, but you get that little bit of bite of chocolate, and it's amazing. So whenever it's time to roll it up, I'm just going to stick my fingers under it kind of evenly on every side and just start rolling until it comes together nicely. It's not that hard to do. Just be a little slow with it. You don't want to mess it up right here, but it's going to be hard to mess up. So yeah, once it's all nice and rolled up, I'm gonna get a knife and I'm just gonna trim the ends off. You don't have to do that, but I like even chocolate and everything, so I cut the ends off. And then right here, we're just gonna get a sharp knife and we're gonna cut right through the babka, through the center, so that way we can shape it in just a second. But yeah, cut right through it with a sharp knife. I probably shouldn't have done that on my granite, but it's fine. And we want both chocolate sides facing up. It's going to make the shaping part super easy, and it's going to make the babka come out really pretty. I'm also just going to clean up my workspace so so everything's easy. But basically what we're going to do is go from end to end, and we're going to kind of twist it over each other. And we're just going to do that kind of going from one end to the other end, and then you can kind of tidy it up once you get to the finishing stages of it. And then I'm just going to kind of pinch the end so that way it comes into a nice little log loaf looking thing. And then from there, all we have to do is put it in our pan. And so basically with the pan, just lightly grease it with some canola oil, some butter, some kind of neutral flavored oil or something, and then cut a strip of parchment that we can put it into. It's going to make this babka come out way easier. You're not going to have to worry about sticking at all. And yes, basically just keep note of what it looks like right now, and we're just going to kind of look for that to double in size once we proof that again. Again, I'm using the oven with the light on, and I'm going to proof this for about 1 hour to 2 hours until it's doubled in size. And I recommend covering it, which I do in just a second. And there we go, uncover it, and once it's fully doubled in size, it's ready to bake in a 350 degree oven for about 30 to 35 minutes. Of course, you can just go until the top is a nice dark golden brown too, and if I could do this over again, I would definitely cook mine a little longer. And right now we're just gonna make a syrup to go on top of the babka. I love using brown sugar. It's gonna be absolutely delicious on there. So we're gonna do equal parts brown sugar and water, and we're just gonna mix that up on a low simmer. We don't wanna boil it. And then we're gonna add more of that delicious, weird artificial vanilla that is so, so good. You can use real vanilla, of course, too. And then we're just gonna take the babka out of the oven, and we're gonna lather that up with a pastry brush all over our babka. And then we're gonna get a spoon and you don't have to do this if you want to be like a little more healthy than me. This is 100% a dessert, and we're just gonna put all of that on there. And we don't have to put all of it, but put a lot of it. Put a lot of it on there. But yeah, it's so good. And basically now we have a finished babka. This babka is absolutely amazing. I could not be more happy with it. I would cook it a little longer, but yeah, this is the best babka recipe that you will ever eat.